Okay, hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Today is the 9th of July, 2023, and we have a very special guest today, Lisa ManN. Hello, Lisa.
Hello.
Hi, Lisa. Thank you for giving us part of your Sunday afternoon over there in Spain. And let me share my screen as usual so we can see what we are going to do this morning. This is our 102nd International English meeting. Believe it or not, Lisa, if you want to watch all the videos, you can find them here in this YouTube channel. If you want to contact me, this is my WhatsApp number, okay? Who are our next guest speakers, Lisa? Well, on August the 6th, we will have Shuri Rahimi from the USA. She will be talking about belonging, equity, diversity, and inclusion. Then on August the 13th, Gustavo Gonzalez from Argentina, he will be talking about say it with a story, tell it with a song. So we are going to dance and sing with him. Then Cristina Mauricio from Mexico on August the 27th, she will be talking about the 6-phase method to train the sounds of English. Then Fernanda, who is present from Brazil on September the 10th, she'll be talking about reading awareness in the age of information. Then a new good friend from Ivory Coast, Abu Kasum, he'll be talking about the teacher as the protagonist of his or her students' success. As you can see, beautiful topics. Then a wonderful educator, Mark Dorr from the USA, he'll be talking on October the 8th about feeling comfortable and having fun with STEAM and STEM. And finally, Hasna Mansour from Morocco, on October the 22nd, she'll be talking about the very, very popular topic these days, ChatGPT in education, transforming the learning experience. So who is our guest speaker today? The very famous, popular translator, teacher, globetrotter, Lisa ManN from the USA. Lisa ManN has worked in the field of applied linguistics as a teacher, director of studies, teacher trainer, and translator for over 20 years, and a Rilo Andes fella too. She holds a master's degree in teaching English to speakers of other languages for Portland State University, Oregon, USA, and a master's degree in translation and localization from Universitat Rovira, Virgili, Catalonia, Spain. And also, Lisa loves getting together with groups of language teachers and sharing ideas, experiences, triumphs, and frustrations, and strives to make the workshop interactive, participative, useful, and fun for everyone involved. So thank you so much, dear Lisa, and let's give her a warm round of applause. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Jaime. It's nice to see you again. I know Jaime from Piura, from Peru, when I was an English language fellow, and we worked together at the Centro de Idiomas there.
Yes.
So it's been a long time now, Jaime. It's probably been about 8 years since I was in Peru, but I remember my time there fondly. I'm going to share my screen, yeah? Is that okay?
Yeah, perfect.
All right, good. Okay, so this webinar is about being an entrepreneur in English language teaching. And I chose this topic because I myself am an entrepreneur and have always been quite enterprising in my life and in my work. Can you see my notes if I do that, Jaime?
Yes, yes, we can see it.
Okay, then I won't put it on. Sorry. Now I don't know how to change it. Okay. Sorry, 1 second. I'll share again. You said you learned how to do Zoom during the pandemic. So did I, but I'm still terrible at it.
I always say that these problems happen to the best word speakers, so do not worry.
Okay, good. All right, here we go. Okay, so I wanted to talk about being an entrepreneur and about the business side of teaching English, because we do lots of webinars that focus on the students and focus on our classrooms and how we can be more effective teachers and how we can better serve our students as it should be. But we also work as teachers. It's also our livelihood and how we make a living. And there are lots of different ways that we can combine our wants and needs as employees and as workers in English language teaching. And I thought it's a good way this is a good platform to talk about all of that. So I am an independent educational consultant. That means I do short-term projects with different organizations, mostly in teacher training, but also in research writing and presentation skills at different universities. And I have owned my own translation agency for, as I was saying to Jaime, I think about 15 years or so, where I'm the director and the translator and an author's editor. So I edit academic articles for publication. So I have, for the last 15 years, owned my own business, but I'll tell you about some of my previous experiences in entrepreneurship as well as we move through the webinar. So let's take a look at what we're going to do. First of all, we're going to just delve a little bit into whether you think the entrepreneurial life is right for you. It's not right for everyone. Like some people do better in a job where they have that discipline, or they have to get up and be there at 8 o'clock and they work their hours and they go home. And some people might enjoy working for themselves more. We'll talk about how you can work for yourself, different kinds of setups and different kinds of structures, how you might get started to work for yourself. And then we'll have a general conclusion and discussion. So let's first just start by thinking about being an entrepreneur. Well, what does that mean? It means that you are your own boss. And there are lots of different ways that you can structure that. But first you have to decide if you even want to do that. There are lots of pros and cons to being an entrepreneur, to being your own boss. So the first step is to sort of think about where you are now in your career, what you're doing now, where you're working now. And think about, well, what do you wish were different? If you could change anything about your job, what would you change? I know we're all passionate English teachers, passionate about teaching, and we love the teaching aspects of it, but maybe there's something that you would like to change. You can say this out loud or you can type it into the chat, but what would you change if you could change anything?
Well, maybe if we could choose the level of students we are going to teach, maybe. Right. Because we all have different teaching styles and ways of approaching people from these ages, or students from this school. I don't know about what the other people here in the audience.
That's a really good one, Jaime. We have to do what our boss tells us to do. If our boss says, hey, you're teaching beginners this whole term, all beginners, and that's what you have to do, right? You can't say, no, I only teach advanced.
I don't know about Raj, Andrea, Fernanda, Marco Antonio, Shuri, Tuhin, Anu, Flamen. Anything to say? Yeah, Raj.
One thing that comes to mind is flexibility of hours, choosing when you want to work rather than have such a strict structure.
Yeah, that's right. So in many universities, especially, you have a timetable, and as an elementary or secondary school teacher as well, you have to be there from this time to that time. That's if you have a life, it can interfere with that, right? Anything else?
I would add to that the pay, at least in North America, the pay for teaching is very incommensurate with the work that we do. And so by being an entrepreneur, you can control your own rates, right? And charge what you want.
Yeah, I think I should preface this whole webinar with the statement that you are never going to get rich from teaching English. So like, that's not going to happen. You're not going to be the Jeff, unless you invent some technology that instantly transmits a language into somebody's brain. Nobody ever got rich from teaching English. And also I should say at the beginning here that when I'm talking about my own experiences, they've all been in Europe. So it's a different economy and a different legal system. There are lots of different countries with the same currency, which makes a difference. So just to put that out there, yeah, money is not, money is never going to be fantastic, but what you can do as an entrepreneur that it is attractive to me is to improve your quality of life so that you feel like, okay, I don't have a huge amount of money, but I feel like I work an amount that allows me to live my life and live it well for what I earn, right? So in the States, for example, it's very common to work, and you also don't get a lot of money, right? So you're never going to make a huge amount of money, but you may feel better compensated as an entrepreneur than you would in another situation. So some advantages of being working for yourself: you get to pick and choose your time schedule, right? In theory, and we'll talk about this in a minute, because you have clients too who also have their own time schedule, and you have to sort of meet their needs. You can have a better work-life balance. As Raj says, you don't have to be in a certain place at a certain time. You can combine your work with your family obligations or other obligations you might have. Any other advantages? Well, one thing
you can set your salary.
you can't though, Harvey. You wish you could. You wish you could, but you can only earn as much as people are willing to pay.
You can decide when to take your holidays.
There you go. Okay, you have more control of your time. That's for sure. That's for sure. One of the things, Tuhin, and you can maybe chime in here. In India, there's a very top-down, so very hierarchical organization of in education. And so you have to do things kind of by the book. And if you are the boss, then you decide how you want to run your classes. You decide your own educational philosophy and how you can implement that in your classroom. You aren't controlled by anyone. Yeah, so you have the ability to have your own vision for what you want to do with your courses and your classes and your company, and then pursue that, which is really empowering. Disadvantages are that you only make as much as people are willing to pay you, right? So you would like to maybe earn a lot of money, but people have to pay you, and it's a competitive business, especially in places like Europe. Possibly not as competitive in other places. What are other disadvantages?
Okay.
What are some other disadvantages to being for your own boss, or working for yourself?
Fernanda?
Yes, I wonder about retirement sometimes.
Yeah.
How does that work? Like, of course, countries have different policies in relation to that. But if you talk about being an entrepreneur in Brazil, it's going to take a lot of your energy and a lot of your years as well. So you have to really plan ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so I hear two things there. One is retirement, which is absolutely heavy on my mind. I just turned 56 last week, so I am thinking about retirement. And it depends really on the country. Where I live here in Spain, we pay an enormous amount of Social Security. And that will be our pension when we retire. But you should also be putting something away to complement that, because it's probably not going to be enough, right? Unless you've put in for many, many years. So that's something to consider if you're working for a university or a public school system. They have 401ks, they're saving money for you, they're taking some out of your check every month very often, and you don't have that. This is part of a disadvantage. You have to think about all of those things and do all of that yourself. It's a lot to think about. The other thing is, so you mentioned retirement and so, oh yeah. The other disadvantage is that as an entrepreneur, you tend to sort of self-exploit, right? I mean, we learn this from having worked for other people who have exploited us. We feel that we have to work all the time, that if we're not doing something all the time, that we're somehow inferior or somehow failing. Yeah, and that's just a false. It's a false assumption. We have learned that work means working every minute of every day, and I think that that's the first sort of mind shift you have to make. That, well, if I'm working for myself, I can decide. Yeah. However, we make that change of mind. I can decide when I work, but I still work all the time. I was working before I came on here on Sunday, because we have clients that we want to satisfy. We'll talk about this a little bit later. But so there are lots of different pros and cons, advantages and disadvantages to being an entrepreneur. And I really would suggest you sit down and make a list. I'm quite a list maker, but if you want to launch your own business, it's something to think about. Well, what do I have now that I would miss if I didn't work in my current context? Well, one way to think about this is with a SWOT analysis, and SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And then this is a tool to sort of analyze the possible scenario. It's very often used in existing businesses. You can use it in my own business now, for example, if I'm starting to lose clients and I wonder what's going on. But it's also a good tool to think about the future and possibly starting a business. When I started this business, my translation agency, I wrote a business plan that included a SWOT analysis. Helps me very much to focus on what I needed to do. So some of the strengths, as we mentioned, are independence and control. You control when you work and who you want to work with, and that's important. Jaime said, maybe now you teach kids and you are just sick of kids. You never want to teach a kid ever again. Well, you can decide, I don't teach children. It's not part of my menu of services. Okay, you can say I only teach adults. You can decide that, and you have control about what you do in your classroom, the books you choose, or books you don't choose. Maybe you want to make your own material. It's something that we're all doing English teaching because we're passionate and motivated to do it. And if you own your own business, you have even more passion and motivation because you want to can be a success and you want to do your job well. So it really gives you a drive to that you might not have in another situation. There is some financial potential, but it depends on the context you choose and the business model you choose. We're going to spend some time talking about business models in a minute. And there's a huge possibility for personal growth because you have to do all kinds of stuff you have never ever done and you never thought you could do. Just like Jaime was saying, when the pandemic happened, we all had to learn how to teach online. I grew so much from that pandemic. I learned how to teach online. I learned all kinds of tools that I could use in my classes. So there's a huge amount of potential there for personal growth. The weaknesses are long working hours, at least at the beginning, because we do tend to self-exploit. We don't want to say no to anybody, to any client who wants a class. You will need, if you want to make money, and you do, you will need to specialize. You can't, everybody who has done some English can put their name on the internet and say, I'm an English teacher. But you really need to be, you need to set yourself apart. And the best way to do that is to specialize. We'll talk about what specialization means in a minute. You need to have some initial investment. You need to have a little bit of money to start. Usually in Spain, if you want to start a business, you have to register that business, and that costs some money. You have to make regular Social Security payments, and you have to pay income tax. So all of these things, you have to meet those payments every month, or your company will fail. So these are things that you need to consider, and that's a financial risk.
I have a question, dear Lisa. Because of the pandemic, and during and after the pandemic, some people, well, many people here in Peru opened their virtual English academies. I don't know if there is an institution that controls, that supervises them to certify that the teachers are teachers, that they are certified. I don't know, but there should be. Is there something like that in Spain?
There's not that in Spain, not as far as I know. I think that, in fact, I know that that's true. I think you can open a language school online or in person and hire whoever you want to teach the classes, and they don't necessarily have to be qualified professionals. And the pandemic, and this is why we need to have a niche, a specialization. With the pandemic, lots of people who spoke a little English said, I'm going to try to do online English teaching, and charge a ridiculously small amount of money. And that's why this is one of the threats. There's huge competition. People who aren't as good as you and aren't as qualified as you and don't know as much as you do, right? So some of the opportunities are, there's a growing demand. You might not believe it because we have all of these online apps like Duolingo, and people think, oh, I can just learn it for free online. There's growing demand, especially in the business sector and in industry, because these people, you realize, if you've ever done Duolingo, you realize that it doesn't help you in an intercultural communication situation. It doesn't help you in real interactions with real people. So there is a growing demand, especially in the business sector.
Okay, thank you.
Educational technology is a huge opportunity. There's all kinds of learning management systems, Zoom, there's all kinds of different things that we can use to give classes online or blended courses that are partly online. You can do all kinds of setups. You can do asynchronous classes, entirely asynchronous, where they're just listening to your recording of you giving a lesson and then giving you writing assignments back. There are all kinds of ways you can use technology. In Europe, and I imagine in other places as well, there are lots of grants and low interest loans to start a new business. The government and the administration, European Commission, they want young people especially to start new businesses. So you can apply for grants, low interest loans. There's all kinds of help out there for people who want to start a business, especially for young people. Yeah, exactly. It's really good.
Not for old people like me.
Not for old people like me and you. We missed our boat. For the young people, yes. For young people, yes. It's easy. It's relatively easy to get a little bit of help for that initial investment that you have to make.
Well, I guess they do it because the younger you are, the more possibilities to pay back the money. Because you won't get sick, you won't die so sooner.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, the more years you have to pay, you can pay for the rest of your life.
That's right. But they also just want young people who are successful and they want business creation and business incubation, especially here in Spain. That's a really big, it's a really big topic of conversation, what to create jobs, right? And there are also digital nomad initiatives. I don't know if you know about this, but there are lots of different countries that will give you a digital nomad visa. And you can move to that country for a year or 2 years, and you get a huge tax break. Some countries, you don't have to pay any tax at all, income tax. And some countries give you reduced income tax if you live there for a couple of years, and you get this special visa that allows you to do this. So in Europe right now, there's a digital nomad initiative in Spain. There's one in Portugal, in Malta, but they're also in South America, in Central America, in Costa Rica. There are, Croatia has a zero tax digital nomad initiative. So these are worth looking into. And if you want to travel, if that's on your bucket list, as Jaime asked me earlier, and you want to also be an entrepreneur and control your own destiny, look into digital nomad visa. This is a way for you to work somewhere else, online, of course, that's what digital means. So you're giving online classes and not pay any taxes, which is pretty good incentive, right? Nobody likes to pay taxes. Threats, there are lots of competition, people who know what they're doing or not. Very often you are undersold, undercut by someone who's charging less than you are, but that person isn't as good as you are. So keep that in mind. You have to sell yourself. You have to sell reason that you are worth a little bit more money. In some places, if you don't live in the capital city, it's sometimes difficult to find qualified professionals if you are planning on having a business that's more than just yourself. It comes into the business models, which we'll talk about in a minute. So for example, if you live in Lima, well, sure, there are lots of qualified teachers you can find there. You can go to the Pedagogical Institute and recruit people who know what they're doing directly. But if you live in a tiny little village, it's going to be hard, yeah, and you might not have as much success. And getting started is hard. It's hard to make a transition from working for someone else to working for yourself, because it's really scary, and you go from having a stable income of this much every month that you can count on to having a variable income that depends on lots of different themes. Is there another one? Oh, no. Okay, so there are all of these things to consider, but for me, it has been successful. I've had a success as an entrepreneur for lots of reasons, and mostly because of the business model that I chose. And we'll talk about that now. So how can you work for yourself? Well, first of all, you have to think about who do you want to teach. So in an ideal world, who would you teach? Who is your ideal student? Just tell me, you can tell me now or type into the chat. You like beginners, Jaime? You like?
Yeah, I love them. I love beginners because I guess they are the ones that most recognize your work, and they feel that whatever they ask you, whatever you ask them to do, they do it. Because they trust you, they believe you, they see you prepare classes, they see that you know, they Google you, and oh, my teacher's been to these places, oh, he has given conferences, oh, he writes articles in the newspaper, wow, he is that teacher. So that's what you were saying about specialization, preparation, is really important for students. It motivates them to believe in you.
Yeah.
So I love beginners and pre-intermediate and also advanced, but my favorite ones I would say are beginners.
And you are talking about university students.
Yeah, well, now I haven't taught at school for 10 years, 15 years, But I love teaching at the school too. But now, because I'm about to be 60, tomorrow actually, I will be 60. Now I love teaching university students. I don't know about Fernanda, Tuhin, Plamen, who else? Marco or Raj.
Who are your ideal students? Kids? Does anyone like to teach children? Everyone's like, no.
I think I'm the opposite of Jaime, because I like the more advanced learners, the adults. And so for me, I target entrepreneurs who are working on their pitches for their businesses.
Nice.
And I love it because it's super interesting. They're really motivated. They have a need for something very specific. And I also learned something from it too. And they also have income, so they can pay higher.
That's true. That's true, Andrea. And when they are in advanced levels, they prefer a native speaker. And that's okay, because when I was studying French, I wanted to have a native teacher. So that's okay. Ambuja wants to say something.
Yes. Hi. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Yes, I think I would like to teach, or rather, I would say I would like to, like motivate teachers, the practicing teachers, rather, because I think that's the most important thing we can do for the Indian teachers, because they are less motivated, with due respect to all the teachers, all the Indian teachers. And that's I think also a problem area, because our teachers, they seriously don't seek like professional courses for their professional upliftment that much, unless and until you're like pushed by the authorities or something like that. So I think that's a bit challenging if I ever wish to be an entrepreneur in this field.
Good. Yeah, that's a really good point. When we were talking about, do I want to be an entrepreneur or not? Some of the challenges that we face in our work, quitting your job and starting your own business is not the answer. Sometimes the answer is getting professional development, right? Sometimes the answer is just learning a little bit more, learning how to do your job in a way that makes it more satisfying for you, right?
Exactly.
So sometimes the answer is not, well, I'll just start my own business. It's really can be something.
And talking about teaching children, Lisa, I guess most people would say no, because it's not a very easy issue. It's really difficult to teach kids, especially in kindergarten. My girlfriend, she works with children. She's been working with them for 25 years. She loves them and they love her. When they are married, they come back to school and say, thank you, wow. But do you need a lot of patience, hard work, material, strategies? Wow, it's amazing to be able to teach kids.
That's right, yeah. All right, so if you're going to work for yourself, you need to first decide on an audience. Who do I want to work with? And there are lots of different possibilities. My background is in teaching business English and university academic English and adults. And I have taught children, but I don't like it. So if I were to start a school tomorrow, I would not teach children. I would not have classes aimed at children as part of my menu of services. It just wouldn't be one of my course offerings. So that's a really good plus to having your own business. You get to decide who you want to work with. I have always worked with businesses, English for specific purposes. There's money there. The people are really motivated to learn, as Andrea said. They really need you. They need to learn English so that they can do their job. And their company is paying for it. And I have a friend, I was talking to her the other day. She has a corporate client here in this area that she's been working with for 30 years. Now, very few people can say that they've had a private client who's kept them on for so long. But companies, if they like your work, they'll continue to hire you. This is important also when we talk about business models, because companies, at least here in Spain, would prefer to hire another company than to hire a freelancer, just a single person. And a company can be just a single person, but the legal aspects of hiring a company versus hiring a freelancer make it more attractive for companies to hire companies. So what needs do my potential clients have that are not being met? So imagine you want to teach university students, yeah? And now we're talking about not at university, but after they finish their classes, they want more English, yeah? So what need is not being met there? Well, something in their university English classes isn't to their liking. We have to do that needs assessment and figure out what people want, or else you're not going to be able to give them what they want to pay you for. And there are lots of different needs that might not be being met in your area. In Spain, and tell me if this is like this where you live, in Spain, school ends at 5 o'clock, and most people finish work at 7 o'clock. So there's this 2-hour gap between when the kids get out of school and when mom and dad get home from work. And what they do is they send them to English class or to sports, to do some English class or sports or pottery. They send them to something, right? And so the location of that school, whether it's near their regular school, near their home, that's really important. On the other hand, there are some areas where there are just so many schools that you'll have so much competition, it's not even worth it. Some clients want online courses and they can't find them, or they want face-to-face and they can't find that in their area. The schedule for business classes is important. When I taught business English, the rule was, and I think it still is this, that half of the class had to be in the employee's own time, and half of the class was on the employer's time. So what we had to start work at 7:30, our classes were 7:30 to 9, and then half of lunch, and the other half of lunch, and then in the evening. That was a lot of going back and forth, but that was the schedule. So if you couldn't do that schedule, they weren't going to hire. The most important thing is value for money. People want to feel that you are worth it, and this is an important part of being an entrepreneur, is selling yourself and not underselling yourself, especially doing your work, preparing yourself. If you're doing English for specific purposes, and you don't have to know all of these fields, this is important to point out. You learn, you buy books like this, Teaching Culture, Cross-Cultural Competence, English for Contract and Company Law. You learn how to do it, and they see that. They see that you have learned this. Also, they already know the terminology in their field. You don't need to know that. They know that. You need to help them use that terminology in English that makes sense, right? In the right context. And often they're looking for tailored lessons, exactly what they need. All right, so there are lots of different business models. I'm only going to talk about a few of them, the ones that I'm most familiar with. Good. Thanks, Tuheen. I just saw your note. I didn't see it before. So the business models that I'm going to talk about are the one-man band. You know what that is? It's when a person plays the banjo, and they also have a harmonica, and they also have a cymbal on their foot. They're doing all of these different things all at once. So the one man or the one woman band is one kind of model you can use. And you can do that either as a company or as a freelancer. You could go into a business with a partner who could be a friend or your husband or your wife or your boyfriend. You could start at a language school, either online or brick and mortar, an actual physical school. In Spain, we have a lot of language schools, and they go out of business all the time. A new one starts and another one dies. It's just a constant turnover. And there are some that have been around for a long time, but most of them fail. And language schools here are mostly targeted at young learners and teenagers, though sometimes adults. And lastly, the cooperative. This is the one that I'm going to talk about the most because it's the one that I love the most. Have any of you ever heard of a language teaching cooperative? You can type in the chat. Jaime has taken a step back.
Say that again, please, Lisa.
Have you heard of a cooperative, a language teaching cooperative?
No, I haven't.
Good, I'm going to tell you about it today. I think for me, a cooperative is one of the best business models you can have for any service, and teaching is a service, right? So I'll tell you a lot about cooperatives because I was in a cooperative for many, many, many years, and it was one of the best professional experiences in my career, and I would recommend it to everyone. But no matter which business model you choose, you will always be juggling those things we were talking about. How much do I need to earn? How much are my clients willing to pay? How can I pay people what they deserve and still make money myself and still cover my overhead, my needs? And how can I maintain a high quality service so that I can ask for more money, right? So it's very difficult. The money part is very, very hard, especially if you have a brick and mortar school. Yeah, you have to think about all of the things that cost money, the Wi-Fi, the electricity, the water, all of these things have to be covered by the price that your students are paying. You still want to pay your teachers a fair wage, right? If we want to pay them as much as they deserve, if you want quality, you have to pay for that. Right? So this juggling man is the picture of everyone who starts their own business. Yeah, that's what you have to do. Think about all these things. So the individual freelancer is probably the most common one. And people think, okay, well, I'm going to have my full-time job as a secondary school teacher, and then I'll also have this other job that I do at night, after school and on the weekends as an individual freelance teacher. Well, I wouldn't recommend that. If you're going to do it and you want to do it well and you want to make enough money, you have to put in the time to plan your courses and your lessons, and your students have to see that. They have to feel like they're getting a good value for the money. And if you don't have time to do that, your students will see that and it will compromise your quality. So it's hard to combine having your own business with teaching at a regular school and earn a lot of money, or earn as much money as you would like to. Yeah? You're also responsible for everything. You have to do marketing, accounting, you have to do hiring and training. You have to do all kinds of things. You have to think about taxes. So all of those things take time. Every moment that you're not teaching or planning your lessons, you have to do other things, and it's exhausting. However, you could do it out of your apartment. You could have a room that if you have a 2-bedroom apartment and it's just you can use that other bedroom as a little classroom, or you can go to companies and work in their offices. You can go to your clients' houses. So everything you earn, you put it in your pocket, except for your, of course, taxes. Another way is with a language school, either online or in person. And I told you they fail all the time in Spain. And I think that this has a lot to do with leadership skills and sort of transmitting the educational philosophy to your students. If you want your classes to be all interactive and interesting and participative and meaningful, but you don't train people, your teachers, how to do that, and not everyone's on the same page, people quit. They don't feel like they're getting a value for the money. hard to find people. It's really hard to find people. I was the coordinator of an English program for much of my career here in Spain. It was really hard to find people. It was really hard to find staff who shared our teaching philosophy. And we had to very often take people who weren't exactly what we wanted, and then train them, which is also a way, but that takes time, and time is money. You have a brick and mortar school, an actual physical school, there's a huge amount of overhead. To think about all those things that you pay for every month. However, it can be very profitable. If you have tons of students and they're each paying for the course, you can have a pretty high turnover, but it's risky. If your staff isn't qualified and they aren't doing their job as you want them to, people start to drop out, and you still have this staff, right, that you have to pay. So it's risky. This is the riskiest one, I think, but it works for some people. Okay, the last one, the one I love, is the cooperative, and this is cooperatives. You might know them. You probably know them primarily from agriculture, where every small producer, they come together and they put all of their product together in one place, and they have one person who works as the person who sells it. They all process it in the same place, and they all share the profit from after they've paid for all of these different processes and services that they need. So a language teaching cooperative is when you have as many people as you want, 2, 3, 5, 10 people, teachers, who all own part of the company. So the company is owned by the members, and the members are all teachers. And all of the members are responsible for all of the parts of the company. So people work to their strengths. For example, I am terrible at math. I'm really bad at like accounting and money, really, really bad at that. But I have a colleague who loves that stuff. So that person can do the accounting. Right? I, however, am a people person. I do well in meetings. I like to negotiate. I can do those things. I'm confident. So I can go and meet with clients. So a cooperative brings together lots of people who all share responsibility for the company, and they all get to work to their strengths. All of the work is shared, all of the costs are shared, and all of the profit is shared among the owners of the company, which are the teachers. It's more ethical than a language school. Yeah, you aren't hiring people to work for and trying to give them less money so that you can manage to pay your rent. Everyone gets the same amount. All decisions are also shared, which is both a blessing and a curse, because sometimes it can take a long time to come to a consensus about tricky questions. You develop a really strong, close community of practice with people in a cooperative. You all have the same vision. You all want the same thing for yourselves. And because you have this vision of what you want for this company, and you talk about it, and you make decisions together, you have this consistency across the organization in terms of quality, in terms of what you're doing. So a cooperative, if you haven't thought of it before, cooperative is a really good way to start a company. It's relatively low risk. Yeah, you just start with your friends and you start finding clients and working together to make it happen. Really good way. The cooperatives are companies. Yeah, they're not just a bunch of freelancers together, and they have a legal status. They are legally in Spain. They have regulations that have to be followed, and in Peru too. I was looking at that. So the cooperative statutes are probably different from place to place. Look into it because it's a good way. So which of these 3 appeals to you the most? Being on your own, starting a school, or working in a cooperative?
Lisa, may I ask you one question here?
Sure.
So whenever you're thinking of a cooperative, teachers cooperative, so how the members of the cooperative are chosen and how their talent or potential can be judged and by whom, how it is defined.
That's a really good question. Okay, so in the cooperatives that I know and I have worked in, it starts with 2 or 3 people who have worked together already or who know each other. And they are form the core of the cooperative. We, in our cooperative, which got to be pretty big at some point, we hired people on as employees at first, as sort of a trial, and then invited them to join if they got good feedback from on their student questionnaires and things like that. So yeah, you can start, it's a company, so you can have employees, you can have an accountant, you can have a secretary if you want. You can hire teachers and then slowly incorporate them into the cooperative. That's a good question.
Thanks.
Anything else? So which one appeals to you most? Would you want to do it on your own? Would you like a school? School's risky, though, too keen, isn't it? It's, having your own school is a risk.
I will go for cooperative.
Yeah, you think so? Good, you're after my own heart. A cooperative is a really good way to go. It's
that's less risky, I think.
It is. That's where the least risk is. And it's also very, very satisfying. Also, if you work with companies, you can earn a very good wage this way. Because in a language school, you think you only get whatever's left over from after you pay all of the teachers. In this case, all of the money that you earn, you keep, in a cooperative. There's some money you have to pay for things like Social Security and things like that. But if you charge, let's say 50 euros, you keep 40 euros per hour, right? You work with companies pay you, and you take that money home.
Right.
All right, so cooperative, that's the way to go. I'm telling you, cooperative is the best business model. It's the most ethical and it's the most satisfactory, I think, the most satisfying. How would you get started? Well, the first thing you have to do is to check out the scene and see if you can do it. If you live in Kolkata, in your neighborhood, is there a need for English teaching within the zone where you can go, right? If you have a business English teaching cooperative, you have to drive to those companies. And you have to figure out, well, are there enough companies in this area and that I can work with?
Exactly. So.
You also need to really find out the legal obligations and for the business model you choose. This is really important. You can get in big trouble if you do things even a little bit wrong, at least where I live, and probably everywhere. But also look into grants, loans, and tax breaks for new entrepreneurs. They're pretty common in Europe. They're pretty common, I think, in lots of companies, lots of countries. Calculate the minimum amount of money you need to make each month. This is really hard. You might not. I've tried to do this on several occasions just because I told you I'm really bad at math. I'm really bad with finances. And I've decided, okay, I need to cut back on my spending. What do I spend money on? And you start to think about it, and you start to make a list, and you think, okay, I think I've got everything now. And then you go for a walk, and you go, oh no, I forgot to put the Wi-Fi up. And you go, all right. And you're taking a shower, and you think, oh no, I forgot to put insurance. And just more things start to occur to you, and the list gets longer and longer. So you really have to consider everything and take some time to think about what you spend money on. Most important thing is to set yourself apart from the crowd. If you're doing English for specific purposes, like I do and have done, learn about that, be an expert in that. showcase your expertise and your qualifications and your education, all of those things, because there are so many people who just put a sign around their neck and say English teacher, but they aren't really, they aren't as good as you are. And you need to tell people how good you are. I would avoid those gig platforms, like where you can sort of, there are lots of these platforms online where you can offer your English language classes by the hour, and you have put the rate right there, and people put like $2 an hour, and there are lots of people who just click on that $2. They're only looking at the price, but that cheapens you. You are worth more than that. Don't put yourself in the same field with those people. That you're better than that. Yeah. You have to do marketing. You can use your own clients to connect to other potential clients, and that's what we mostly did at our cooperative. And most of all, don't undersell yourself. Know what you're worth. Check out what people charge in your area, and then charge the highest amount that anybody pays. That's the way to do it. Yeah. Sell yourself. Charge a lot. Charge what you're worth. You have to define a menu of courses that you offer. Your course offering can be as short or as long as you want it to be, but it should meet those specific needs that we talked about earlier that you will understand from sort of checking out the scene in your area. Offer English for specific purposes courses in petrochemical plants, courses of 3, 6, or 9 months. All of those details have to be laid out and specify your qualifications, the tailoring of the courses, and your expertise. That's it. An important thing, last thing, have a financial cushion, because sometimes you won't make as much money as you hoped, and sometimes a month will come. And one time, for example, we had this huge flood here in my city, and all of the companies closed for 2 or 3 weeks. I can't remember what. And there were no classes there, and we didn't get paid for those. So you have to have a cushion that's an emergency backup amount of money that will help you get through the month in case, and not just 1 month's worth. You have to have several in case something happens. A global pandemic, for example, you can't do your classes all of a sudden. All right. So does it sound like something you can do? I think you can. I think everyone can start their own company. It's really a matter of, do you want to do it? Do you want to do it, and how do you want to do it? What business model do you want to choose? Yeah. But there is a market for it, especially for English for specific purposes, especially for adults at businesses. Yeah, that's the way to go. Kids, you can have kids. You start a kids company if you want, teaching kids. More power to you. But I think it's very hard to really make a lot of money teaching kids. The parents don't want to spend a huge amount, and their kids, your expertise may be lost on the parents. They don't see how having an expert English teacher is more beneficial than just having any person who speaks English. All right, so let's just conclude and have a little talk then. So there are lots of different directions you can take. You can do it all on your own, or you can be a cooperative, or you can be a language school. A cooperative is a very ethical, very fair way to do it that takes a lot of pressure off, a lot of risk out of starting a business. Investigate everything, and I mean everything. What do people charge? Who's doing what? Who's in your town? How much money do you need to make? How much money do most people make? What about my retirement? All of those things. How about my taxes, my Social Security? All of those things need to be looked into before you even begin to consider doing it. Choose the right business model for you. Yeah. Again, one person company is hard to do, but it's possible to start. It could be a start that moves into a larger thing. set yourself apart. Don't just be another online teacher. There are so many. And my husband actually does French online. He just speaks French, and he doesn't care. He takes like the $2 the $2 an hour French teacher, because all he wants to do is speak. But you have more to offer than just that. So, you know, don't just be that person, right? He takes the cheapest one, and he just wants to speak with him or her. Don't be afraid to do it. Take the risk, try it. And if you fail, you fail. Just get another job, right? I mean, I have had a million jobs in my career. I know in some cultures it's really very common to have one job and stay in it for your whole life. It's not necessary though. You can get a job. There's lots of English teaching jobs out there. There's a shortage of qualified English teachers. So commit to it, but know when to pivot, know when to change, and to decide, okay, if this isn't working. All right, so those are the take-home points of this webinar. But I'd love to hear from you. What you've joined probably because you are thinking of, or already are, some kind of English language professional entrepreneur. I would love to hear what you think you might like to do, or what you envision being an entrepreneur in this business is like. Or maybe even tell us about some successes or even failures you've had as an entrepreneur in the past.
Well, after listening to you, I feel motivated to start my business. But I guess my problem has been, is, and will always be money. I'm not good at charging. Really.
Charging.
Yeah, I got friends who have been teaching or have fewer qualifications than me, or no less than me, and they charge much more than me. And I say, wow, how do they do that? Well, that is the principal problem for me. Then
have the nerve to do it. That's all you need. Is you have to say, you have to know what you're worth. You've been teaching for decades, 25 or 30 years, Jaime. You are a university professor. You're at the top of your field.
I would love to open a school for teachers, for public school teachers, because from my point of view here in Peru, you know the reality. They are the ones who need, who deserve, who should be studying and be well prepared, because if they make a mistake, it will be multiplied for how many students they have in a class and how many classes they have. And the other problem is what I asked you before. There should be an institution checking, certifying that this academy, this institute that has opened, has the qualified teachers. And they know, because I got ex-students or friends who just open an institute with just, I don't know, 2 years of experience, 3 years of experience. So I think we should be very honest, very transparent, very professional to start a business like this. Thank you. Andrea.
Sorry, I just want to comment that, Jaime, if you started a business that focused on teacher training, teachers don't have any money. Right?
Yeah, I know. So that's why it would be easier
for you, but you wouldn't make a living from that. However, you could sell those type of courses to government, local or regional government agencies that are responsible for that type of thing, right? So, I mean, you have to just think a little bit bigger. So the teachers themselves don't have money for that. They may recognize that they need it and really be motivated to have it, but they probably couldn't pay it. But maybe the school district would, if you were to offer it, put it together.
Okay, thank you. I guess, who was it? Yeah, Andrea, go on.
Yeah, thank you. So I love the idea of a cooperative. I think that's brilliant. And right now I'm going it alone. I'm doing all the sales and the marketing and all of this stuff, and it's a lot. And I do it primarily on LinkedIn. And so I'm wondering, Lisa, if you have any suggestions or any ideas, or based on your experience, ways that you are connecting and getting more contracts with people.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's a hustle, and I don't particularly enjoy it, but I don't mind it. And I love working with entrepreneurs. I would love to see a bigger picture, kind of as you're encouraging Jaime as well, right? And I don't know how to find more contracts or find more ways of getting hired.
Yeah, most we had it at one time, many business clients all over this region. And I think almost all of it came from the clients themselves. So we would be in meetings, or I would be in a meeting with them, and we would say, you know, we have this sort of gap in our schedule. I know you do business with X company. Do they use English there? Do they use English as a lingua franca with their partners in Germany and things? And then that conversation would start, and it would end with, yeah, let me give you the number of the HR person there. I mean, really use the people that you already have. Like right now, I do a lot of classes in courses in universities, short courses for research, writing, and presentation skills. And these courses, these people talk to each other, right? The people who organize these, and they're usually schools that organize courses for all of the doctoral students in the university. So, I mean, again, a big part of it is not being too shy. Like Jaime's too shy to ask for what he's worth, but you also have to be not too shy to say, you know, I'm trying to sort of make a living from this. And so I'd like to get more classes. Do you happen to know anyone who might be interested in this type of thing I'm doing with you? I mean, just go for it, just ask. Like the worst they can say is like, no, God, I'm sorry, you know, or you just do it. You just got to do it. Ask people who you already work for. And if you are working with entrepreneurs, you can get into all kinds of things like university doctoral schools and things like that, who do these little short courses in presentation skills or whatever in English. You're in Canada, so I guess everyone speaks English already.
Yeah, I primarily go for Spain, Brazil, and Italy on LinkedIn. And so that's where I'm targeting people. And the most people that my clients that I have had are CEOs or COOs of their own company. So yeah, it's a good idea. I do a referral bonus. And so if they bring more clients, then they receive something in return.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I find that, I mean, just from my own experience, that sort of financial incentives with companies, they don't work that well. The company's going to pay, they're going to pay you anyway, right? Like it's not your student's pocket money, it's his company. Like it's a tax write-off. So I mean, I have always been a sort of a relationship builder, and that's where I've always found more clients, just by saying in a very organic, sort of natural way.
Yeah.
Sort of, you know, I'm trying to, you know, I have a lot of work, but I still have some gaps. I wonder if you know anybody, you know. So it just occurred to me, I know, I'll ask you, you know. But it does work. It does work. And if you just have to be brave enough to do it. Sorry, that's not a great answer, but I hope you know how hard it is. It's hard to do. There's a lot of different moving parts. It's hard to find clients. Fernanda.
Yeah, so you said that you think everyone can be an entrepreneur, like it's possible, you know. And I don't know, but it seems to me that not everyone is able to, because we all have different contexts, and sometimes we have to look at our boundaries and what we really want to achieve from having a business. So I think that it comes down to asking ourselves if we are ready to commit to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's absolutely right. Yeah.
And honestly speaking, like honestly, I'm not ready for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Some people never will be. Some people don't even want that. I mean, that's why they ask you at first, like, what are the things that you would like to be different in your work life? And is starting your own company the answer? Maybe not. Maybe if you want a different work life, it involves doing some other thing, talking to your boss, changing departments, getting some training or professional development. Yeah, there are lots of answers, and being an entrepreneur is not the only
Because
way.
I think you also run the risk of becoming a people pleaser. And when you are in a business, you have to be careful, like whether you're going to do something because others want you to, or because you want to do that, because you're willing to do that, So I think there's a fine line there, that if you don't get your priorities in life, then it would be really difficult for you to find your entrepreneur spirit, or
Yeah.
yeah.
And one of the things about the cooperative that's really useful is that you have people to have those discussions with. So for example, and it's true, you do tend to self-exploit as an entrepreneur. You try to please everyone. So imagine you have a client who you're already fully booked with that person, with that company. And they want yet more classes. They want you to do more classes for them. You don't have anyone to cover those classes. So your options are, I could say no, and they'll have to find someone else who maybe they like better, who's maybe cheaper, who maybe they'll take instead of me for the future. Or we could hire someone to do those classes. That's a super hard decision to make on your own. But if you're with a group of people who all have the same stake in the company, you can talk about what's the best plan, and maybe make a different choice. So it's that self-exploitation, that overworking yourself and trying to please your client, saying, I've already got 20 hours with this client, I guess I'll do 35 hours or whatever. That crazy, like trying to please the client all the time can be tempered a little bit by having people with you who are like-minded and who say, no, this is crazy.
Sorry, can I add something as well? I have small jobs here. I do a little bit here, a little bit there. And I know an entrepreneur here, and she has her own English school, and it's online. And I decided to take some classes and to teach some students online. And my experience was that with working with that person, it was not always pleasant, because she has something in her mind already. And when you try to fit into that, when you try to fit in, it's difficult, because the person doesn't see exactly as you do, and then the student says something and then you say something else, because the student wants something else. And if the teacher is not ready to give what the student wants, then it will be really difficult to carry on like this. So from my experience, I actually had to give up some students who were really, really focused, but because I really didn't have the profile, or I didn't have the courage to fit in or it wasn't for me, because the student wanted the teacher to follow their principles, to speak Portuguese, to translate things all the time. And that was really difficult for me, because I don't believe in translation as a means of learning another language, from my own experience as well. So then the student complained to the boss, and then the boss came to talk to me, and then the boss wanted me to fit into that framework. So I think we have also to be careful when we are hiring other people, if we're doing that, so that we don't condition them to what we believe. So it's
Imagine yourself in the boss's situation, since we're talking about that as an entrepreneur. In the boss's situation, she has to please her client, right? And she also wants to make you happy, right? She doesn't want to alienate you and make you angry or quit. So there's a lot to think about when hiring people. And there's a lot of training that goes on in our cooperative. We do a lot of training. And before I worked at this cooperative, I was the director of English for a company that gave classes in business English classes. And there was a lot of training that happened there as well. There has to be some consistency across the organization, right? You have a name for yourself.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's hard. And dealing with complaints from clients is the hardest part of any job. You just it's horrible, but it's part of being a boss. It's part of being it's part of the job. Yeah. I'm sorry that happened to you, Fernanda. That sounds terrible.
It's fine. I mean, we're still friends. We're still friends. So I still teach some students sometimes when she needs. But I told her I'm not going to take any more classes at night, because that's when all the clients, that have more time take their classes, and they're more like into business. Because I feel really tired as well, at night.
Yeah.
So that's why. But
that's what I was saying. It's really hard to combine it with a regular job.
Exactly. That's
You
it.
can't put your all into it.
Yeah, but how do you usually deal with like these kind of dichotomy, like when you have to keep an employee, and then you also have to sort of satisfy your customer? How do you deal with that?
Well, it depends on the seriousness of the offense. If the client wants a new teacher, you have to give them a new teacher, right? But if the client just wants you to do something different, then you would need to be trained in the way that the client is right. I mean, if that's what they want, if they want you to translate for them, they are paying for you to do that.
Yes.
That's what you've got to do. And you can have a conversation with them that's like, this isn't the best way to learn a language. This isn't, the research has shown that it's in fact, the worst way to learn a language, blah, 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 blah. But in the end, if he says, that's what I want and I'm paying you, well, that's what you got to do. Or you can just say, okay, well, I'm not the teacher for you.
Yeah.
Dear Lisa, could you please stop showing your slides so we can see each other?
Sure.
When you have the option, right? Because we need to survive as well.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right.
Thanks. So I don't know if somebody else has a question, Raj, or a comment to make. Plamen, Marco Antonio, Fernanda, Tuhin, Ambuja, Shuri, or Linda. Somebody else wants to say something? Plamen, go on.
I don't have a comment, but I have a question. So listen, thank you very much for your exhaustive and very detailed talk. Will I be correct in my assumption if I say that the cooperative model starts like a music band, and then once the business has taken off, and then people might decide to go on their own ways and do their own stuff? Like, is this common based on your experience? Thank you.
So what do you mean the company breaks up?
Yeah. Once you feel that you have a lot of work, and then you build a name for yourself, and then you decide to, I don't need my
it's not five music men. it's a company.
It's harmony.
Yeah, so they were all working together. So you're not building a name for yourself, you're building a name for the company. Right? So that's an important thing. You couldn't break off. Well, we had a lot of trust among us as members, but you could also have a legal agreement that would say you can't break off and take these clients. those aren't your clients. You work for this cooperative, and this cooperative has these clients, and you just happen to be giving that class at that company, right? So that's a difference between sort of just a bunch of individuals and a real unit, and it's a real like unit, it's a company. That's a good question.
Raj?
So Lisa, thank you for an interesting presentation. A couple of things that I wanted to share from my personal experience was that, it is important to, when I'm helping people understand what I do, to separate myself and say, when they say no to me, this is not a rejection. That I don't want to take that personally. If I take that personally, it's not going to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
Am I providing the value this person's looking for? If we focus on that, and I think that's helpful for me, is to say, here's what will be different. Here's what you will get when you work with me.
Yeah.
Accepting no and not taking it as a rejection. And the other part that I found was, because I was a sole entrepreneur, large companies often would say, is there nobody else that works with you? Like, if you're away, who will we be contacting? And if it's me, myself, and I, there's nobody else there. So the cooperative model, which I did not explore, is a good option.
It's a good option for that. You have people to support the company in lots of different ways. One thing about saying, about being able to accept no, it's sort of the flip side of that coin, is being able to ask for what you want, and many times, especially as women, we sort of dance around what we want, but being very clear and very specific about what you want is it's professional and it's appreciated in the business world. Where you say, well, the price is this, it includes this, this, and this, it does not include that, and you're very clear and professional and transparent. And I think that's something that is a skill that you learn, right? You learn it as you work. Yeah.
And the hardest thing for my own business was the marketing. If somebody was paying me for my marketing, they would fire me because I wasn't doing marketing.
That's what Andrea was saying, that it's the hardest part is to find new clients, and we were lucky that we had a good reputation, and that through our existing clients we were able to get more and more, until the point where we turned down people sometimes because we just didn't have enough teachers.
It's important to look for where the referrals are, forming alliances, having referrals, so that there's constant stream of business coming in. Yeah.
And having a cooperative was also a strong point in that, because our clients appreciated the fact that we were a cooperative, that we weren't just sending in these 24-year-old kids who had just finished university and paying them the minimum wage, but we were all professionals. We all owned the company together, so we had this stake, we had this investment in making our classes good. So the model itself was a selling point. Good. Any other questions or comments?
No more questions, no more comments. I guess no. Well, on behalf of the audience present here and the people who were following us and listening to us, Lisa, this topic, plumbing. I know. Okay. I guess this idea is very good, but I insist on being honest, on being upright, on being truthful when starting a business like this. Because in my country, you live here, Lisa. So in our Latin American countries, maybe the idea of business is money. But first, we have to think if we are qualified, if we have the qualifications, if we have studied, if we have the specializations, the years of experience, and then we can think about if we are going to give a good service or not. I think that is really important. Well, now you have a few minutes to say goodbye to the audience, and we will be happy to have you back some other time, dear Lisa.
Thank you, Jaime. And thank you everyone for participating.
Yeah, Raj,
Lisa-
want to say something? The
Yes,
president
Lisa.
of our association.
No, Lisa, before we leave, we'd like to sing happy birthday for Jaime because he's turning 60 tomorrow. So I'm not.
Yes, I
Yes.
will be older. Yeah.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we sing? You want to sing, Raj, or we just say happy birthday?
Please lead me. Lisa, lead us singing.
Me? No, I'm the worst person to choose
So
to lead.
1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to me. Dun, dun, dun. Happy birthday to me. Dun, dun, dun. Thank you.
And many more.
Yes. And the question is, how old are you now? How old are you? Well,
It's
thank
a
you,
big one.
everyone.
It's a landmark birthday, Jaime. Have many
Yeah.
happy.
Thank you so much. Okay, thank you, thank you, thank you. So just a reminder, maybe if you forgot, our next conference, oops, where is it? Who's be Shuri Rahimi on August the 6th. So that will be in 3 Sundays, I guess, right? 3 or 4, I guess. So we will have a break, a holiday to rest, and then we'll be back on August the 6th to listen to our dear friend Shuri Rahimi talking about BEDI, belonging, equity, diversity, and inclusion, helping students enhance their sense of belonging and community. A beautiful topic, just as all the other ones. So thank you, have a nice Sunday, and see you soon. Keep safe.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
very
Thank
much.
you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.